You are not allowed to decide when to eat lunch. Got it, boss? Kind of short, but TLDR at bottom. Long time lurker, first time poster. This was some time ago, probably early 2000s, but this event is burned into my brain. I'm sure over the years the story has been embellished a bit, but the core of the story is told exactly as it happened. I've worked in K-12 education technology most of my 20-plus years in my professional career. When I first started, I was the only technician for a small/medium school district, 2,500 or so students. During the time of this event, the Director of Special Education, SPED, was married to the superintendent. I reported to the business manager who used to teach technology but was not a technical person. For the most part I was left to do my work and was not overly micromanaged, so I got into a habit of taking my lunch whenever I felt like it or even not at all. If I didn't take lunch and there was no pressing work, I would just leave a little early at the end of the day. Of course, I made sure all the schools were out before I left. As time goes on, I got in trouble for leaving early, so I would take my lunch whenever time permitted. Sometimes it was when there was only an hour left from work, sometimes not. But I would chill at my desk and just screw off. The others in the office where my desk was reported me for screwing off every afternoon. When I tried to explain to the business manager that I was taking my lunch, she says something to effect of, "You can longer take you lunch whenever you want, your lunch is from 12 o'clock to 1:00. I say, "No problem," message received. So, starting that day, no matter what I was doing, at 12 o'clock I would stop what I was doing and take my lunch. If I was at my desk I would screw off. If I was at a school site, I would go sit in my car. Fast forward a month or two later, at about 11:30 the director of SPED calls and says his computer is not working and I need to come fix it right away. I say sure thing, on my way. When I get to his office, he says please fix it and heads off to a meeting. So, I start in on removing all spyware he has managed to collect. At this time all employees were local admins on their desktops. About 1/3 of the way through 12 o'clock hits. I stand up and walk out of his office and tell his secretary I'll be back in an hour. Out to my car I go, expecting a phone call any minute, and sure enough about 15 minutes in I get a phone call from the business manager. Here's about how the call goes. BM, business manager, my boss, and me. BM, I hear you walked out of the SPED director's office without fixing his computer. Me, correct, it is my lunch time. BM, what do you mean, you couldn't fix his computer first? Me, I could have, but you told me that I could not decide when my lunch break was, that I had to take lunch from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. BM, wait, that's not what I meant. Me, but that is what you said. If I stayed and worked on the computer and took my lunch at 1 o'clock or 1:30, I did not want to get in trouble for screwing off when I was supposed to be working. BM, okay, I'll call you back. She calls back about 15 minutes later asking if I can please go back in and finish his computer, and from now on I can decide when the best time to take my lunch. And it was never talked about again. It was nice being able to go home early when I didn't my lunch again. TLDR, I am told exactly when I am to take my lunch. Until a director, who is married to the superintendent, wants his computer fixed during my lunch time.
Now to the comments. BM, wait, that's not what I meant. Me, but that is what you said. That the true heart of malicious compliance right there.
Amen. Adhering to the letter, not the spirit of the instruction.
OP replied. To an extent yes, I did know walking out of the superintendent's husband's office would get me a phone call, but it was explained to me very clearly that I was not able to take my lunch break whenever I wanted. I had been in trouble for working through the noontime hour to get work done, because when I would take my lunch later in the day, my co-workers were complaining that I was screwing off during work time. Boss could have resolved other employees complaining by dealing with them rather than micromanaging you. That's harder, until you get the big boss breathing down your neck for messing up a system that worked until you decided to micromanage it.
God knows how many jobs I've worked at where people found fault with me screwing off and the boss thinks it's my problem, even though I get all the work done in record time.
This right here. I am the kind of person who works hard, works fast when I have a task in front of me, and I enjoy my downtime once those tasks are done until the next comes along. I truly despise the prevailing mentality that constantly working, albeit slowly and inefficiently, is more productive than banging out assignments and chill until the next one. At this time all employees were local admins on their desktop. As someone who works in district office IT and whose district has had a ransomware issue, this gave me hives.
OP replied. It was a glorious day when we changed that setting. Now if a user must have local admin, looking at all those companies that make bus video cameras, they get a computer that cannot get online. I physically remove the wireless card and disable the Ethernet port. Now no one has, including tech staff, local admin privilege with a normal user account. You know, like step 1 in securing the enterprise network, each technology staff member has a separate login for admin privilege. Edit, added clarification. Only technology staff have separate admin login, normal staff do not.
We don't even give staff members admin privileges. If you need something installed, you have to go through IT. Our district employees apparently can't be trusted with computers, and for good reason. Working Walmart, especially cashier or electronics, this would happen a lot. Per Walmart and state policy, must take a lunch after working 6 hours. When I was a cashier, I would try to tell them, but depending on the CSM, they would ignore me. So, I started not reminding them. When I got called in for breaking the 6-hour rule, I pointed out that I can't leave my spot unless told so. The CSM never released me. Last argument we had on that. When I moved to electronics, it was very much the same thing, especially as I was the only worker in the department. At first, again, I would call CSM or a manager to watch the department, but I was told to just go when I needed or they wouldn't respond at all. Again, when I got called in for leaving the department empty, I would tell them no one would respond or I was told to just go. They ended up deciding that it would be best if I just go, but I had to respond to calls. Which started the third malicious compliance. Per policy, if you are interrupted at any point during your break, you start your break over. Doesn't matter if you were at minute 1 or 14, if you were bothered by work-related items, restart break. So of course, they called me out for not working, taking too many breaks or too long of breaks. I pointed out that I would get called mid-break, sometimes by management, to work, so I started my break all over again. They eventually just left me alone. Not malicious compliance, but I would tell new managers that once you've been here a year, then I'll remember your name. They of course didn't like it, but I had more years of experience with Walmart than most of them, and it was like a revolving door with management edit spelling errors and making it easier to read.
I worked at Sam's Club a while ago, and state law made it so that the business was breaking the law if I worked more than 6 hours straight. Our computer systems locked us out after 5.5 hours to protect the company. The number of times I got locked out in the middle of trying to check out a customer was absurd. CSMs didn't like me reminding them that I was coming up on May 5th, so I just stopped.
Last I worked cashier, it would lock out at 6 HR, unless you were mid-transaction, which was always, then it would lock at the end of the transaction, which then it is basically too late to clock out by 6. It would give warnings starting at 5.5, but again, the CSM wouldn't listen. You shouldn't have taken a work-related call during your lunch break.
OP replied. LOL, you are correct, that would have really got the business manager's blood boiling.
That's not what I meant. Wait, what? She specifically gave you hell for not taking lunch at a certain time, then in no uncertain terms told you that you have to take lunch at a certain time no matter what, and that you are not allowed to deviate from that set time. There is no possibility of misunderstanding what she ordered you to do. and yet that's not what I meant? Sounds to me like she was trying to dodge responsibility for her own poor decision.
OP replied. Yep. She did not see the impact of the decision. I tried to explain that I generally worked a task until it was fixed or at least at a good stopping point before I went to lunch. One of the lessons I have learned, the rules only work until breaking the rules is convenient for the organization, then the rules do not apply. So, when I was taking my lunch when it was convenient for me, well, that had to stop. When taking my lunch late was convenient for them, then no problem.